Do you feel that your life is chaotic? Especially lately, with all the disruptions and upheavals, uncertainties, really throwing us for a loop. Seems to be a lot of chaos going on. What do you do about it? What do you do when your life is chaotic? So depending on the level of chaos, it could be quite unnerving, disorienting, and frankly overwhelming to the point that it really can shake up our entire lives. Perhaps on a more subtle level, chaos does confuse us, but we manage it. We compartmentalize, we minimize, we find different ways to escape. But would you be surprised to know that you can actually turn chaos into harmony, turn chaos into something spectacular, if you know how to navigate it? There is a method. So please join me as we discuss the beauty of Tiferet. How to turn your inner chaos into a symphony. Hi, this is Jacobson, and we'll be speaking about the beauty of Tiferet. How to turn your inner chaos into a symphony. This program is dedicated in honor of Simone Grassenbacher. Do you feel that your life is chaotic? Many of us would describe it that way. Not all the time. But there are definitely situations when we find ourselves lost. So many different forces tugging at us in every different direction. Depending on the level of chaos, obviously extreme chaos is extremely disorienting, unnerving. But no matter what level it does shake us up. Human beings gravitate naturally to calm, to order, to predictability. We look at the world today with so much uncertainty, upheavals, disruptions, to the existing comfort zones, to our pre-existing security blankets. So many of us do feel that we're living in a very chaotic time. So how do you deal with it? How do you deal with your chaos? For some, it undermines and literally upends our lives. I'm sure you've seen it, I've seen it, how chaos can turn into destruction. Destruction of marriages, of relationships, of businesses. In other situations, some people deal with chaos by compartmentalizing or escaping, avoiding, minimizing. Sometimes we escape again in not healthy ways, just to avoid the disarray, the mess of a chaotic situation. And just look at your life. Maybe it's in your relationships. If it's chaotic, what are you doing about it? So denial is always the first place people go to. Second place, it creates anger, pointing fingers, accusations. And then there's all the other ways we cope. Same thing with events around us. When circumstances are unpredictable, uncertain, they seem chaotic, they seem out of control. Out of control, that's a big one. We don't feel in control. It usually creates chaos, breeds chaos. Out of control situations create even less control. Like they say, hurt people, hurt people. When you're in a chaotic state, often you create chaos for others. But at best, we try to keep it at bay. We try to avoid it. We try to minimize it. We try to compartmentalize, as I said. Would you be surprised to know that there's actually a method, I'll call it a secret even, that helps us not resolve chaos, but transform it into harmony. Yes, into a symphony. But to do that, we need to discover, we need to learn about a particular, we'll call it environment, a particular formula. The formula based on ancient mystical texts is called Tiferet. Tiferet is a Hebrew word for beauty. It also means balance, harmony, synthesis. And it refers to the third of the 7 emotions, the Kabbalistic sporadic structure, that you may be familiar with the 7 emotions. Kindness, discipline, beauty, balance, Tiferet that we're describing. The first 2 in Hebrew are Chesed and Gvura, Tiferet. Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchus, respectively, determination, humility, yielding, bonding, and dignity. But we're focusing on the third one. And why? Because this week happens to be the third week of the 7 weeks between Passover and Shavuot, which is called the Omer counting. If you're familiar with my book, The Spiritual Guide to Counting the Omer, we also have a free app called My Omer app. Check it out. It's essentially a journey of personal and character development, with each week focusing on one of these 7 emotions. And we're now in the Tiferet week. So obviously fitting to talk about that. Tiferet is an unbelievable, simple but deeply profound part of our life experience. And when you learn about it, it's not only eye-opening, it can be life-changing. It's understanding something that seems paradoxical at the outset, counterintuitive, but then you realize, oh wow, that's it. And I speak from personal experience. The first time I heard about it, I said, wow. Sometimes you look at things in life and it seems confusing, chaotic, I can call it, and then something clicks. Someone tells you something, an epiphany, and you suddenly see where you see chaos, where others see chaos, you see order. Where others see fragmentation, you see patterns. That's what experienced people are good at. You go to a doctor and be kinds of symptoms that nobody can understand. The doctor, a master, will right away say, this is what it is. Sometimes it may take research, or you go to a business person who looks at numbers that to us may seem random, and will see a pattern. It's like that bird's eye view that suddenly makes sense. That when you're looking close up, you can't tell. But when you take the bird's eye view from a distance, the whole thing takes on a whole different reality. That's what Tiferet is. It's a deeper perspective, a higher perspective on existence, on life, on your life. So let's start with a very simple example. What is beauty? What is beauty? How do you define beauty? Now, when you look around, you'll find all kinds of different explanations, but nobody has really ever put their finger on it. I believe some of the ancient philosophers tried to describe beauty. Some call it symmetry, some balance. But is it like, take a beautiful face. What constitutes a beautiful face? Is it the eyes, alluring eyes? Is it the nose? Is it the complexion? If you think about it, it's a combination of all of them. Yes, there are people who have beautiful eyes, have a beautiful nose. But true beauty, the way I would define it, is harmony within diversity. It's a combination of many different things just in the right pattern, and you call that beauty. So the interesting paradox is this. On one hand, beauty consists of details. For example, a beautiful musical note. You wouldn't call a beautiful musical note. You'd say it's a note. Beauty, a beautiful symphony, is when you have many notes in the right order. Play them in the wrong order, it's chaos. Worse than chaos, it's noise. It's grating. So it needs many components, but put them in the right order creates a type of synergy that's more than the sum of the parts. So a beautiful face, yes, the eyes, the nose, the complexion, the ears, but how they all come together, their position. You look up beauty, you'll see it's not just the eyes, it's how distant they are from the center of your face. Small little things that we can't even always point to, but when it comes together, it's a beautiful work of art. Art is a beautiful example as well, as is music. Many different notes. So as nice as one note may be, it's always going to be many different notes and many different beats and different structures. But they all come together in this harmony, this greater harmony, this synergetic, which is more than the sum of the parts. Same thing with music. As in art. So color blue may be a beautiful color, or the color red, whatever color is your favorite. But it's never one color. One note, you keep playing it, it becomes monotonous. It's the different notes, it's the different musical instruments, and it's the pauses as well as the sound. It all is part of the whole structure of what music is all about. And the same with art. It's not the one color, it's many colors and shades and nuances. But that poses a challenge. Because put it in the wrong order, it creates the worst possible chaos. One note can't create a big mess. You know what they say? What's worse than one person singing out of tune? Two people singing out of tune. Take many different notes and put them in the wrong order, and it's terrible. I'd rather just have one. So the power of beauty is that it's possible to be extremely ugly too if you do it the wrong way. Take that same beautiful face and reorder or change a few little things and the whole thing becomes much worse than just neutral. So to put it in the more, I'll call it spiritual, psychological terms. We'll talk 1, 2, 3. Number one is the singularity. There's one cell, one color, one shape, one note. It's just what it is. 2 creates the potential for conflict. Because as soon as you have two people, it could be two opinions. Number 3 synergizes, creates the harmony within diversity. It's when two people have two different opinions, and maybe very different opinions, very even contradictory opinions, but they come together and they talk it through, and you come away with a much better and more refined and crystallized clarity. That's called the harmony within diversity. That's Tiferet. A mediator who really makes peace between two people who are disagreeing is not just saying, okay, I'll take one side and you just defer and surrender. It's finding that wisdom that both can live with. And actually enhances each of them. Because that's really what it comes down to. Look at the human body, a healthy human body. Look at nature. It's the perfect personification and embodiment of the beauty of Tiferet. Many, many parts, over 35 to 75 trillion cells. How many systems at work? If you saw them all separately, you'd never think they can come together in one small little 5-6 foot body. 100 to 150 pounds, I don't want to go higher than that. But then they do come together. And look at the harmony in which they work. And harmony doesn't just mean they coexist, they complement each other. What would one be without the other? And they know how to perfectly balance, literally like a symphony, with a conductor, an invisible conductor, Tiferet. That elusive and secret, mysterious number 3, that has the ability to take many, many details and turn them into order. Same in nature. were it not for any human intervention, nature has its way of balancing itself. Even things that seem to be predator and prey, which you think is destructive, or forest fire, and so on. Again, without someone disturbing the balance, there's a balance to it all. There's an ecosystem that's more mysterious than we can ever imagine. Think of the food chain. If in a certain part of the world an ocean is polluted and the algae is compromised, it will affect the food chain that ultimately can be thousands of miles away. Certain animals will have to migrate in a different way because they don't have enough food. Some may not go extinct or at least diminish in numbers, and in turn their prey, which is necessary for the balance, begin to multiply. I don't know if you remember the story with Yellowstone Park, where they decided, I don't know if it was decided, but the elk, by getting rid of the wolves, the elk became an epidemic of elk that ate up all the vegetation, and it completely disturbed the balance. They had to bring back wolves in order to get the balance of the elk population down to a level that can maintain the right balance. So it's all about that balance. Now here's the problem. When we face chaos, we don't think of it that way. We think, let me get rid of the problem. Today we live in a fast food generation. Short-term solutions. I have pain, put on a Band-Aid. I have a headache, take an Advil, painkiller. We're addressing symptoms, not the roots. Now, sometimes that's necessary, either for short-term solutions, or sometimes the problem isn't that big and you could solve it in a superficial way. But the real issues in life, you can't just have some fast food solution, some overnight fix, quick fix. But we want that. And that wanting that often creates much more problems. So when you do have chaos going on, whatever form it is, could be in a family unit, family not getting along with each other, or some members of the family. So instead of trying to put a Band-Aid on it, you need to have the wisdom to step back. And sometimes you need objective advice to come into the picture and look at it and see how can we turn this into music, into harmony. I know it sounds a little naive because when there are real fights, we all know how bad it can get, but that's because the infection has festered and no one has solved it, so it's now become a major fire. So obviously, as soon as you can nip it in the bud, that's what you want to do. Because if you don't do that, the chaos can become so overwhelming, it becomes much more difficult to just come in and say, let's bring Tiferet into the picture. But as soon as possible, as soon as you're aware, instead of trying to either ignore it, and I'm talking about something obviously that needs to be addressed, not something that is superficial like a Band-Aid will work. Instead of ignoring it, instead of minimizing it, instead of trying to escape from it or pointing fingers and allow it to create more problems, it's stepping back and looking, okay, we have the individuals here involved. I'm giving you an example of the family. Is there an evil person here? There may be. There may be a narcissist. There may be more than one. We're not going to take away that possibility, but it often takes two to tango. And in this case, maybe more than two. So imagine 3, 4, 5. The more exponentially, the more chaotic it becomes, the more problematic. This one's siding with this one doesn't talk to that one, and it just escalates. A vicious cycle. So stepping back, how do you find the Tiferet? You start divide and conquer. You start looking at the pieces. This person has this strength, but if it's not somewhat tamed and humbled, it can intrude on someone else's boundaries. Tiferet is about boundaries. Like going back to the musical symphony. If everybody's playing these instruments at the same time, it's not going to work. The body. You take a piece of food in your mouth. So yes, the windpipe. The food goes down the food pipe, not the windpipe. And all the processes, the regulators, the different channels that open and close and valves and so on, it all has to have that balance. Everyone has their role, but you want to figure out what's the boundary. This is what you're supposed to be doing, and don't intrude on this boundary. Is it simple? No, but there's a formula. The formula is they're going to turn the chaos into harmony by understanding that all the pieces are necessary. Now, if you discover that a piece is not necessary, listen, that's what's called editing. You edit an article, a book, sometimes something has to be taken out. In a family unit, if it's a family, you can't really eliminate a family member, but you may have to neutralize certain forces, or you may have to restructure it. It can always be done if, obviously, there's the humility and there's the willingness to make it work. The same thing with marriages. Now, are there crimes that are hard to forgive? Violations, betrayals of trust? Obviously. But even there, if you take the Tiferet formula, which is called bittul, a form of humility, a form of suspension of ego, and allowing in the bigger picture, because that's the whole secret. If every individual entity is insisting, me, you're not going to have harmony. Harmony is based on that every entity knows I have a role to play, an indispensable role, but there's also another that has an indispensable role, and they have to work together. All successful entities, all successful structures consist of this balance of Tiferet. I always marvel at the end of a film. Look how many credits. And we all know how many films don't work out because of egos, because of control battles, and so on. And even those that have all those credits, we always hear about different fights. But that they finished the project and they have all the credits means that somewhere, something, maybe it was the self-interest, people realized that we need to figure out how to work together. The director, the producers, the producer, the actors are the actors, the music, the choreography, the design. I'm not even going through all of it. There's something that impresses us. I remember when I wrote Toward a Meaningful Life, there were a few people, more than a few people. It wasn't just that I wrote a book that they liked. The idea that I wrote a book. So someone told me that the fact that you've brought together ideas in a cohesive way is very impressive. Obviously, I'm not the only one that's wrote it, but I remember hearing it in that context. It was putting harmony in a certain place of taking different ideas and that does take work. So life is really about that. It's looking at the dots and connecting them perhaps in different ways, seeing the patterns and trying to discover the symphony that lies in that chaos. Now, there's no question there's certain things that have to be eliminated. Sometimes the chaos is a result, there's something extra. There's an expression, the more you add, adding is subtracting, short is long. Sometimes you need to shorten the article or the book, or the amount of people, too many cooks in the kitchen. But that's all part of developing harmony. It's not about eliminating anything, it's about creating the right balance. That takes a certain wisdom and objectivity. That's a key to everything. So in this week of Tiferet, we get the energy, this harmonic, this synchronicity, the synthesis, the power of synthesis, taking many different ideas and being able to put them together in a new way is so beautiful. And we see it all the time. That's why we're such awe of nature, the balance. We get mesmerized by a beautiful song and, of course, by beauty itself, because we're seeing harmony and diversity at work. Now, with musical notes, they don't have free will. So if you position them in the right way, you play them the right way, you're going to get the beautiful music. Human beings have homogeneous musical notes that can jump off the page and say, I don't want to be part of the symphony. Or I want to play my own song, I'm not interested in the rest of you. That's where the problems set in. But that's also part of the process. If you find someone like that, I remember discussing once, helping advise an organization. They had a very good worker. But this worker happened to be a guy that was excellent at what he does, but also very abrasive personality. And other people couldn't find easy to get along with him and so on. So they were going to fire him. But one of the people knew me. They asked me my advice. I heard it out. I met the person. I started seeing. I said, why don't you just put him in a certain role where he's not really involved so much with other workers? where he can only does what he does well perfectly. Obviously, there's going to be some interaction. They say, no, but that's his role. His role is to interact with this one. They tried it. Until this day, they're thankful to me because they got the best of both worlds. What he does well is doing excellent. And there's the rest of the stuff was more or less eliminated, simply not because they talk to him and try to change him, because they recognize these are his limitations, these are his strengths. Keep the person. Give someone who has certain strengths a job where they're weak in, you're going to have problems. Give someone who's weak a job that I should say strong in another area, is sometimes simply fitting the personality to the job. And not just saying, oh, we have this person already, let them do everything. So it's not just knowing what to give people, it's also what not to give to them, to create this proper balance. That's how harmony is created. So harmony is not compromising. It's not resignation, it's not surrender. It's taking all the pieces and putting them in the right order. That takes wisdom, it takes objectivity. Because without objectivity, people start defining, over-exaggerating or under-exaggerating, over-delegating, under-delegating. And that, my friends, is the secret of Tiferet, that each of us can master. So where do you begin? You begin by looking at your life and trying to see what are the pieces, what's not working, that's causing the chaos. Sometimes you start untangling things, you don't untangle everything. Take the issues that are easier to untangle. Like a yarn, like wires that are untangled. First, untangle the on the periphery, the external parts, and then isolate the area that's most difficult. Find an objective person to speak to make sure you get the picture right. Because sometimes you may think you have it right, but maybe you're not seeing it clearly. And combining that, come up with a plan. Okay, now that we've done A, B, C, D, where else can we take the chaotic pieces and either we can neutralize them or eliminate them if possible, or figure out how to use them in a positive and a healthy way. That's what real Tiferet is about. And if you think about it, all of science and all technological developments is that balance. Every computer program, every system of energy, information technology, even the way electricity runs into your appliances is all about gauging, about balancing, about regulating the flow. And the same thing, just open up a book. Is there more white space on the page or more black space? Meaning more the letters or white space? Well, there's more white space. And white space, you don't read the white space, but it's necessary to balance. The letters have to be a certain distance from each other. Bring them too close or too far, and you won't be able to read the page well. Everything in life is Tiferet, really. So Tiferet is like that invisible quilt, that invisible harmony, that invisible coordinator or conductor that makes sure all the pieces are working in proper harmony. When you find that, you find what we call shalom. In Hebrew, shalom means peace, but peace also means complete. Peace is not just the absence of conflict or the absence of war or absence of divisiveness. Just like love is not just the absence of hate. It's an entity on its own, a beautiful entity that takes many parts and turns them to a greater whole, a greater synergy. May you be blessed to be able to find that Tiferet within you, within your heart, within those around you, and create something far more beautiful than the sum of the parts. This has been Simon Jacobson, meaningfullife.com. If you enjoyed this program, you found it meaningful, please share with others. Please subscribe to our offerings, including to our YouTube channel. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, your feedback and comments. Let's together create harmony. Together, we are each indispensable musical notes in the great cosmic symphony of life. Let us create such harmony in our own lives, our families, our communities, and spills over by extension to our cities and our states and our countries and our world. Because at the end of the day, 8 billion people on this planet are 8 billion musical notes like you and I. Thank you and be well.
This program is brought to you by the Meaningful Life Center. Please help us continue our programs. Make even a small contribution at meaningfullife.com/donate.